Good morning. On this Saturday, we're going to try to do a couple extra chapters. Our scheduled reading is Judges 11 and 12. We try to cover 13 and 14, and then on Monday we'll pick up 15 through 18, and then we'll be back on the schedule of Bible Gateway. I'm going to be on early on Monday morning. It'll be on, of course, whatever time you come on to listen, but I'll be on somewhere around 7 o'clock or so on Monday morning. As we look at today's readings, it starts out in chapter 11. Now Jephthah the Gileadite, the son of a prostitute, was a mighty warrior. And, of course, his brothers didn't like him because of his mother. And they said to him, it said when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah away, saying, "You shall not inherit anything of our father's house, for you are the son of another woman." And it wasn't uncommon in these days for men, for whatever reason, to have more than one wife, but he was not well received by the other. So he fled to another country. And end of verse 3, outlaws collected around Jephthah and went raiding with him. So he became an outlaw, a leader of a group that, was, terrorizing people, robbing people, doing certain things they shouldn't be doing. And he came to be kind of sneaky in an awful lot of ways and learned. He figured out a lot of things about warfare and that. And verse 4, after a time, the Ammonites made war against Israel. And when they made war against them, the elders of Gilead went to bring this outcast back home again, this outcast outlaw. They wanted to bring him back home again. And, and he said, "Aren't you the very ones that rejected me? You drove me out of my father's house, and now you want me to come back? What's in it for me? I want to know that, when I come back, if I do good, I want to be rewarded. I don't want to be kicked on out." And they agree, if you come back and, there's some diplomacy going on here. It isn't, he doesn't just say, "Hey, yeah, I'll do it." But he bargains, he barters with them for a place of prestige, a place of leadership when this battle would be done. And as he goes to battle against some of these others, they wonder, "Well, why are you battling against us?" And then it's this reminder of, when the Israelites came, you wouldn't allow us to cross, you wouldn't allow us to do this and that, and so that is part of the reason, and as the battle goes on, Jephthah comes to God. In verse 29, it says, "The Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh." He went on through here and there, and he made a vow to the Lord. He said, "If you give me the Ammonites, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house, I will offer as a sacrifice to you, as a burnt offering." And when you read that, you just know, oh, something bad's going to happen. And when he comes home, it's his daughter, his only child, his daughter. And, he's immediately just, awestruck. He can't do this. And she says, "You made a bargain with God. Let it be so. But first, let me go and spend," I remember it was 2 weeks or 2 months, and she went out and she lived in the desert for these, so it was 2 months, and she comes back again. And, and the anticipation for us is that, God will forgive that. Well, we don't find that out. We aren't taught about that anyway. And then, chapter 12, these other lands again are wondering, well, why are you battling against us? And when everything comes down, at the end of verse 6, they seized him and killed him at the fjords. 42,000 of the Ephraimites fell at that time. And so it's this battling is just, terrible deals. And then, but Jephthah judged Israel for 6 years. And then says he died. And then after him, Isban of Bethlehem ruled. And he had 30 sons and he gave his, for 30 daughters. And then after him, Abdon, and chapter 13 begins with Israel again, doing what is evil in the sight of the Lord. And the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. And the Philistines, they're one of these lands we hear of often, of battling against the Israelites. And so they ruled the Israelites for 40 years. And now we're going to be introduced to Samson. Verse 2, chapter 13, there was a certain man of Zorah, the tribe of the Danites. His name was Manoah, and his wife was barren, having no children. And how often do we hear that? A man and a wife, and they have no children. And God grants them children. The angel of the Lord appears. Although you are barren and have no children, you shall conceive and bear a son. But, don't drink any wine. Don't have any strong drink. Don't eat anything unclean, for your son will be a Nazarite. And when her husband Manoah comes home, she tells him this. And he's awestruck. Well, how can this be, And who said this? Let this man come and talk to us again. And the woman said, a man of God. And, he kind of wonders, but he prays to God. He says, "O Lord, I pray, let the man of God, whom you sent, come to us again and teach us what we are to do with this child. Come and teach us." He's asking for affirmation of what his wife told him, but he also says, come and teach us how we should raise this child. And I think about that. I mean, when we bring our children for baptism, in the words of baptism, we ask the parents and the sponsors, do you promise to bring your child to worship, to teach your child about God, to place in their hands the Holy Scripture, teach them the Lord's Prayer, the 10 Commandments, and teach them how to be a child of God. And so here we have Manoah saying to God, I need you to help teach me how we should raise this child so that he can be all that you want him to be. And I think, wow, what a model for each and every one of us, for all people, to think, how do we teach our children to be the person that God would have them be? I mean, that's kind of a mind-boggling question. And the parents in a baptism and the sponsors will say, yes, and I ask God to help and guide me. And then as the whole congregation, we chip in and say, we welcome you into the family of God, and we will do these things. We will help. And, most churches will provide Sunday school, confirmation, place the Bible in the hands of the children when they're, second grade, fifth grade, whatever grade it is. But as a church, we raise our children that way. And so we teach them what it is to be God. And, so Manoah, the angel comes. And Manoah doesn't realize it's an angel. And he says, I want to provide you with a meal. And the angel says, that sounds great, but, make the offering as a sacrifice to God. Do this as a sacrifice to God. And Manoah does that, and the angel ascends into heaven in the smoke of the burnt offering. And it is then that Manoah realizes that this was an angel. And he says, we're going to die. God was here. And, of course, his wife says, if we were going to die because we saw God, would he have made this promise to us of a son? He's going to bless us and all this. And we go on. And chapter 14 is the beginning of our story of Samson. He goes down to this country, this town of Timnah, and he sees a Philistine woman, and he wants her to be his wife. And, of course, well, can't you marry a local, one of our kin? And no, and of course then he goes and he gets married, and the first thing, there's this test of the lion. It's the riddle that he tells to these men, and his wife, the men can't figure the riddle out. It's out of Out of something strong comes something sweet. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet, because he had killed this lion with his hands. And when he came back later, there was a hive of bees in there, and he took some of the honey out. But his wife tricks him, and he says, "Oh, you haven't told me. I just feel so lost. And of course, she tells the others, and they have the answer to the riddle. And so Samson is betrayed by his wife, and he's angry, and he goes back home again and leaves his wife there. And so we have the beginning of the story of Samson, and most of us are aware of all of what happens with Samson, but we have another time when God has promised a child to a barren couple, and it is this child, as he lives, will be a hero in the Old Testament.